Doctor, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, Sean. So great to be with you.
Well, good. I always appreciated our friendship and your support, and I love what you've been doing. And I think for the audience, you and I both met each other having dinner with the president of the the incoming president of the United States in 2016 at his club at Bedminster, kind of getting ready and talking about the administration. And it's so funny how time has flown and everything that's evolved between then in terms of where we've been with the media and healthcare and everything like that. So I'm looking forward to getting into that discussion with you.
Well, it was such a memorable dinner, right? I mean, that was, and you're right. It's been 10 years, Sean, and it's been such a pleasure over these years. And I'm so glad to be chatting with you.
Oh, good. Thank you. All right. So I want to cover two basic things. I want to talk a little bit about the media and then like healthcare and government and kind of where we are because of your background in this. But let me just start with this. In 2018, you bought the Los Angeles Times. Why did you want to do that? You've a very successful businessman, a very successful doctor on the cutting edge of a lot of stuff that we'll get into. But what made you want to venture into that?
Well, by that time, 2018, I was living this American dream, and we had this amazing opportunity, from my perspective, to buy an iconic brand so that we can actually, honestly, in my mind then, is to save the newspaper, to save democracy. And I recognized it would be a very tough slog. Papers were dying. And Phil Anschutz famously pulled me aside at the Lakers game and said, Patrick, I thought you were a smart guy until today.
It's my dad was in the boat business, and there's a saying that the two best days are the day you buy a boat and the day you sell it. So I think we have a similar background on that. Every time I bought something, my dad would go, you're not going to be happy until you sell that now.
And I'm not going to sell it because I believe this iconic brand can really make a statement. You have this wide divide in our country, the far left and the far right, and somewhere we need to come into the middle, and more importantly, to have a voice, not just of integrity, but authenticity, something you can trust. Today, when you use the word media, I think it's synonymous with I don't trust media. And then you have got Gen X, who reads the paper? So, I'll share with you today what my plans are. And I started this, last year, where we needed to actually create a whole new platform. And I'll go into that with you, and if you'd like.
Yes.
Well, I think it's almost started in a funny way. It come full circle, as you know, that dinner we had at Bedminster with the president-elect then. And we won't go into the fun time that we had there, but in October sometime, when our paper had a predetermined endorsement for the vice president then to be the next president, and I stopped that and got into huge fights with the editorial board, my own editorial board, many of them whom resigned. And it highlighted for me that what we need is truthful voices, not an echo chamber. But it also highlighted for me the opportunity to have things, look what we're doing here, a completely new version of podcasting. We have conversations, and I've done a few of these now. And it's so clear to me that the young people want to hear these conversations. So could you have a podcast? But then you want video, and could you also have video? And the opportunity to have podcast, video, media, newspapers is really something that didn't exist. So one of the things I did in 2018, believe it or not, I secretly built a complete new content management engine called Graphene. That content management engine is now live, where you will see on latimes.com live streaming. Soon we'll get to 24 hours live streaming. You'll see podcasts. You'll see news. You'll see voices. You'll see the e-newspaper. And I'll share with you now, taking that vision, this iconic brand of LA Times, and creating what I call LA Times Next Network, where whether you're on TV or you're on digital, whether you're on podcast, whether you're on the Food Network, whether you're the book show, whether you're on news, or whether you're on healthcare, whether you're esports, whether you're gaming, we'll be there. That is what we're about to launch quietly, a platform. We would love to have the Sean Spicer show on that platform.
I'd love to have it on there.
So that's what the plans are, and the plans are really imminent.
Meaning, give us a timeline. Do you think this is a month or 2 months, 6 months?
Within the next quarter,
Okay.
we will talking about this, launching this, and it's taken me 5 years to build this infrastructure, the fiber infrastructure, the streaming infrastructure, the broadcasting infrastructure, the test kitchen, which is already up. We have the largest book festival. I've built now gaming. We're about to into esports. And you heard about the Lakers yesterday. I mean, sports is an amazing thing. And Lakers just got a new owner yesterday, and obviously an amazing value to show that sports brings people together, food brings people together, conversations bring people together. And if you can do that in LA Times Next Network, including TV, if that's what we need, we'll be there.
It's interesting as you describe this, Doctor, because when most people traditionally thought of the media, and you talk about Gen X and everything else, I think for older Americans, they think of a news channel, a newspaper, like a platform or something physical that brings them just the news. And you seem to be talking more about using that platform to bring information, experiences, which seems to fall outside of what the traditional definition of a news outlet would have been.
Yeah, and I think I'm grounded by the fact that I'm a physician, and I explained that to you, because everything I was doing was with regard to healthcare. And I wanted the patient to have, and the doctor, to interact in real time and have decision management based on even AI today in real time. So there's real time communication. Now, if I extend that all the way to the consumer, I'm going to try and extend to the consumer the ability to eat healthy food. But they don't know what's healthy because these labels don't tell you that. Guess what? We've built an app with millions of databases that could tell you instantaneously at point of purchase what's in that food, what's processed in that food, what dye is in that food, and whether it's good for you or not. So my concept of network is really digital information of transfer of knowledge. We call that network. And now we have a brand of LA Times that can create this particular next generation networks. That's why I want to call it LA Times Next Network. And have folks like yourselves and to come on and have serious long-form conversations. And, you can have it on demand, you can have it live. I love these live shows because to me, the ability as you know, I've started with Mark Halperin, this Cancer Decoded, because there's such a thirst of knowledge, of authentic knowledge, scientific knowledge, of experts in the field. And my job is to bring these experts into the room and have conversations and then share that knowledge with the audience live. So
when you talk to the traditional folks at the Los Angeles Times, the reporters, the editors, do they buy into this vision, or are they like, this isn't what we signed up for? Or do you care? That's the beauty of owning it.
No, I do care because I do need very good investigative journalistic reporting. That is one of the hearts of newspapers. But you also need to engage. You also need to inspire. You also need to create knowledge, which is not in the newsroom. And that's why we created LA Times Studio, which is the live streaming, and the test kitchen, and the book festival. But you absolutely need good journalistic reporting. And that's what I said. But the reporting has to be based on facts. you also need to have a vehicle where you have opinion. It's okay to have an opinion. There's a left opinion and a right opinion. And I watched the Carlson Tucker talk between
Ted
uh,
Cruz and
Ted Cruz yesterday, and they have different opinions. But it's you need a place where you can voice his opinions in a very either on in the written form. And if you go to the app today, I've called that voices, and I purposely call that voices because everybody deserves a voice. You don't need to agree with the voice, but everybody deserves a voice. So if you hit that button on voices, a button we call insights, and imagine putting Tucker and Ted Cruz together. Uh, you hit that button and you have the Ted Cruz view, and you hit the button, you'll have Tucker's view. And that is now live on our app
that's
of
awesome.
LA Times, right? So trying to find a way where we can bring the country together and importantly, to really inspire this next generation. I worry about this next generation,
Yeah.
the Gen Xers, because I think they feel despair and lost, actually. We need to find a way to get to them and inspire them.
But it's funny. When you say that, because I agree with your outcome. But the difference is, I think when I was growing up, and I don't know about it was sort of like the old adage was like toughen up, like, hey, not everyone's going to be like you, and like and now it's the opposite, which is if your feelings are hurt, then we need to figure out. We kind of go to the lowest common denominator. We go, Bobby's feelings are hurt, so everybody needs to wear a blue shirt tomorrow because he didn't like. I mean, like we go the opposite, right? When I was a kid, it was, hey, you fall off your bike, get back on, pedal, like you'll learn. Or someone said something, mean at school, you'd say, turn the other cheek. You know what? Who cares? Now everybody's conditioned, and to your point about the voices. I'll tell you a funny story, and then because I agree with you, I despise flag burning. I literally like it makes my blood boil, but I will defend it till the end of time because it's protected speech. I think you're a moron if you do it. I actually would love to see you leave the country. I mean, like it really makes my blood boil. But I believe the beauty of America is that that's what the First Amendment's about. It allows these disparate voices, as crazy and stupid as they might be, to say what they want. That's what America's all about. When I was back before the campaign started, there was an article that came out in the Washington Post about my help with Donald Trump. Okay, it was this profile piece about how I was helping coordinate him as he became the nominee. And my college at the time put a
And this
link
was
to
in
the
2016?
2016. Yep, summer of 2016. And the Washington Post did a story. It was called "The Outside Guy's Inside Man." Okay, and all it did was say Sean Spicer, who's been at the RNC for a while, has been helping work with Donald Trump. My college took the link from the Washington Post and put it on their Facebook page, okay, and said Sean Spicer, class of 93, profiled in the Washington Post. Full stop. That's it, okay? Sean Spicer, class of 93, profiled in Washington Post. The comment section, and again, this is almost 10 years ago, 2016, was my feelings, I don't feel safe on campus anymore. I don't know how I can recover from this. I need to and I'm like, it's a link to a story. And I think to your point about the voices, I agree with you. I think that's healthy. That's good. But
Right.
I think we have changed in this country to a culture of the next generation where every time their feelings are hurt, they need to be reaffirmed. They need to be hugged. They need to find someone to blame. Somebody needs to be canceled or censored. So how do we get over that?
I think, part of the whole thing is how do look when I came to this country, in 1980. To me, it was the most really inspiring and generous. I mean, that's the word, generous and kind. Generosity, kindness, and where this is all for the common good, not just sort of, you're right, just including strength. And that's why I think the problem is right now, sadly, I think what's happened, we had the sort of beginnings of the shift and then COVID happened. I think the isolation that happened in COVID and the lost time of people's social interactions, we are still paying for it today. So we just have to keep on fighting through this. And maybe things like what you're doing now and things that I'm going to try and do with LA Times Next Network, and the Health Decoded and the sports. I'm going to try and bring some basketball players together and chat, because I watched this women's basketball now, and I said, "Wow, they're even getting violent." And I was amazed, right? But I think we need to change the culture back to what we were. It's going to be tough, but I don't think it's impossible.
When you look back, almost 8 years ago, and you bought the LA Times, and I get what you're trying to do in terms of this new platform, but is there anything that you learned big picture about how news was gathered or disseminated to the American people that you look back on now and say, I didn't have any idea that that's how the sausage was made?
Completely. I mean, truly completely. When I bought the paper, I was given 24 hours, 48 hours to make the decision. Can you imagine, Sean?
Wait. So walk me through that. So how does this work? Hey, would you like to buy the paper? You have 24 hours and here's all the money?
Yep. Literally that. Because what happened, Chicago, the Tribune was one big conglomerate, and I had invested into that conglomerate. And then the chairman of that conglomerate was going to take everything and centralize that in Chicago and literally shut down the LA Times and the Washington Bureau. And he knew how desperately I wanted to preserve the LA Times. So he came to me on a Friday afternoon. And I remember it because it was, I think, Super Bowl weekend. I can't remember what weekend was. Football, some great football game weekend. And he said, "Hey, Patrick, here it is. It's $500 million. If you don't make a decision on Monday, I'm shutting down Washington Bureau and I'm moving everybody else to centralize in Chicago." I said, "Are you kidding me?" And he said, "Okay, I'll take a room up in the hotel," because I was running a conference. He's flying in. We negotiated. He says, there's no more due diligence. You've got until Monday. And on Sunday, I said, "Okay." That was how I bought the paper. And by the way, the newsroom, it's in LA Times downtown, is a rented space, and they're moving out. And I said, "Okay, well, then I need to build a newsroom. How long do I have? 3 months." So I took a building that I was going to create the cancer center in El Segundo, and I went to the mayor and I said, "Listen, will you let me work 7 days a week to build a newsroom, the 7-floor story newsroom, which I've never seen in my life, and do it the way I think?" And that's what I did. That's the LA Times.
I've spent more time buying used cars than, I mean, when I hear that and I'm thinking $500 million, 24 hours, and oh, by the way, we're moving out of the building. I don't, so what was it that what was it that you were doing in that 24 hours trying to check the finances? What does that look like in that moment?
I brought in 2 members of the LA Times. I brought my finance people who thought I was nuts. I spoke to my wife and my family and said, "This is a way, it's not, by the way, Sean, it's not a philanthropic exercise.
Right.
It's a social belief of why we're an American, and the opportunity to really save the paper, save the Washington Bureau." And as I said, I live the American dream. I had just sold my 2 companies and I was in the process of building what I call Nantworks, which is trying to address issues that face the nation, whether it be cancer, climate change, energy, communications, cybersecurity. And I was in the midst of that. And to me, this was one element of communication that I could have to interact with the public, to inspire. And was 500 million the right number? Absolutely not. I know I triply overpaid.
I feel so bad, so much better about some of the things that I've bought now because I'm like, I'm in the thousands of dollars of buying like a lawnmower or a used car or a boat, and I see, okay, I'm like, I feel better that you paid a lot more.
But I don't regret it because I think now, having done that, and then I built on top of that crazy this new content management system called Graphene, which, by the way, I gave away to some of these small newspapers in Northern California. And then I built a fiber infrastructure, which is now running the largest fiber infrastructure in the nation, so we can go to data centers. And then I built an AI platform on top of that, so that the world is now caught up to the idea of this communication network, if you want to call it a network, that is a platform that will reach different people and different views. So I now have a brand that hopefully people still trust, and we will change what I consider news reporting, opinion, and engagement. That's what I want to do, and if that's what it costs us, that's worth it.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.